kind of regular narratives that have emerged over the course of the past year have really been about white officers and black victims. But race, as critical as it is to this, also feels somewhat incidental to a broader question of policing and police relationship to community.
No, that's absolutely right. And so I think, this conversation is spot on, and that what the video shows absolutely is a crime, and possibly a crime that went, quite conceivably too long to prosecute. And in that crime, we see a white police officer shooting an African-American man who is clearly not coming toward the officers. And so in that sense, it's understandable that we narrate this through the kind of categories of race that we have. This is somebody who may have had a racist impulse at the moment, and may well have. But I think the student that we spoke to earlier was spot on in that this shooting is also a symptom of a much bigger problem that police violence or just relationships with the police are part of, which is it's not delinked to questions of community, about how do people get their health care, how do people get their food, how do people feel that their lives matter in society. And so I think that if we just fix policing, and we don't fix income inequality, and we don't fix healthcare, and we don't fix a number of other issues, that in a way this is, policing is a symptom of an issue. It's a symptom of an issue, and in that regard, I think that we do it a disservice if we just focus on the race of the officer or even of the victim, because this is an issue about class as well.
Charlene, I want to come back to you on this issue, because I know what the kind of, that there will undoubtedly be a discourse about the Chicago case, maybe even linked potentially to Tamir Rice at 12 years old being killed. That the other story out of Chicago this week is about a boy dragged, basically lured off of a playground and killed by gang members. So you know that one of the conversation lines will be, well, isn't that also a form of violence that protesters ought to be engaged in trying to end? How do you and other protesters respond to that?
It is absolutely a form of violence that we not only have to protest against, but we have to organize to make sure we get to the root causes of that issue. And so the violence that Tyshawn Lee experienced and the violence that other black children and black people have experienced in Chicago and all over this country is not isolated. It's not isolated at all. It's connected to the same systems that are corrosive, be it capitalism, patriarchy, just poverty, people being poor, people not having access to quality education, and people not believing that their life has as much value because things are taken away from them. And so we have to fight for these things. It looks different. I think the fight looks different. Protesting against Mayor Rahm Emanuel looks different than going towards or fighting crime within our communities. Because I am not about to protest a person who I know who has killed someone in the same way that I will protest Mayor Rahm Emanuel, who represents a system, an institution of power, and he's accountable to a wide range of people. Black folks, what we need, of course, is much more restorative justice practices in our communities, but we also need those basic goods, those basic needs, resources that we don't have. And so we can't tackle one without tackling the other. My protest of Tyshawn Lee's death and his killing looks different, but it still exists and it's still valid. It doesn't get the cameras. You have mothers in Inglewood who fight every single day. Mothers in Inglewood who fight every single day, and you don't see them on TV.
Yeah, I was thinking about the mothers and fathers who were on a hunger strike there when the schools were being closed because they were talking about the danger of their children having to cross these lines. Stick with us, don't go away, because up next on the shooting of Laquan McDonald, President Obama weighed in.